Welcome back to Better Advertising with Better Media. Today, I'm incredibly excited to have a friend, client of Better Media, and just an amazing human in the space on the podcast, Ana Sviatschi from Future Beauty Brands. Ana, you are the Director of Commerce or Digital Commerce, I believe.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of history and how you got started in this space and what brought you to working with Future Beauty?
Yeah, of course. So I would say that life kind of led me. I was one of those lucky people that started her career in e-commerce when e-commerce was booming and nobody knew what to do. So I originally started, my career started at Unilever, but I was originally part of marketing. Um, and then Unilever, we're talking about this was what, like 15 years ago now, right? Was trying to figure out how to step up digital. And with that came, of course, e-commerce and content and everything. So I was one of the first digital marketer roles at Unilever at that moment. And I think that I landed into that space because I just finished an MBA at NYU that was specialized in digital. So was kind of like the person that knew more about digital at that moment, which just looking backwards, of course, I didn't know anything. And I always feel that I don't know anything because it's so hard to catch up, right, with the industry. But I feel like that's where I started my digital journey. And from there, I moved into e-commerce. I worked at Unilever for like close to 12 years. And then from there, I went to Bayer, where I led the e-commerce marketing team there for allergy and cough and cold. I spent great 2 years over there, but the commute was really bad for me. I live in Westchester and the offices at Bayer were in Whippany, so it was a long commute. So I had to make, the right decision for my mental well-being that I had to be closer to home. And that's when the Future Beauty Brands opportunity came. And I thought, why not? I've never worked in beauty. It was so close to the heart, right? To just start to sell things that I actually use and wear. So I really loved it. So that's 2 years ago. So I currently lead all of the e-commerce strategy for Future Beauty Brands. We own a total of 6 brands that place in different categories: skincare, tools, very niche, I would say, categories, but super fun to work with. And it's been a journey, I would say. We mainly, I would say, like, the biggest, my responsibility is Amazon, but I also work very closely with the national media team because, as we know, everything we do offline had an influence on online with Amazon specifically. I would say the most newest that we were talking earlier with Destaney is that we launched TikTok Shop this year because being a beauty brand is almost like AI and TikTok Shop need to be on your resume. If not, you're not doing your things properly. So it's been really interesting, a very cool journey so far with the brands.
That's amazing. I mean, so much of our role is just figuring out all the new things, throwing it up against a wall and seeing what sticks. And it can be overwhelming because there's so many different opportunities right now and the industry moves incredibly quick. Coming from Bayer and Unilever and the allergy side into beauty, were there any key learnings on the differences that stood out in the beauty category or anything that you just enjoyed that was maybe a little bit different in the beauty category?
Yeah, I do think that for me, I would say I always like to, to preach what you say. I don't know now the saying not coming up to my mind, but I always, if I'm selling something, exactly, I really need to feel the products, right? I would say at Unilever, I the last years of my career was on tea and I love tea. So that was very easy. When I moved to more of like the allergy and cough and cold business, I'm going to admit, I was that person that would never take a medicine when he was sick, right? So it was really hard for me. So I became an allergy. I acknowledged that I had allergies because I was on denial for a long time, right? So, and then I started to use allergy medicine, which now I do, but maybe not as often as I used to do when I was working for the allergy business. And then I know I have tools right now available that if I shouldn't be suffering through my cough and cold, I can take one of my Alka-Seltzer pluses, which was the brand that. But with beauty, I think it felt very natural because I wear makeup, right? And we sell tools, so it was very easy for me to understand the benefits of the tools that we were selling versus other competitors. With the skincare products that we participate on self-tanning, it's the same. I think that when you feel closer to the product, everything flows a bit more natural because it's easier to sell something that you are using on your day to day, and you are also the shopper. I feel when you are entering into another category where you are not the user, you need a bit more due diligence to really understand and put yourselves into the shoes of the shopper and the people that are buying the product.
I couldn't agree more. And a lot of the other categories, allergy is a great example. You have a very prominent need that needs solved relatively quick. You're sneezing a lot, you're coughing, and it can almost sells itself. With beauty, you're playing into this really big narrative of society's perception, and you have to really connect with your audience. And I think, as we've recently learned, there's 100 different ways to connect with an audience, whether it's utilizing the tools of AMC or how niche a TikTok algorithm can be. That creative has, I think, scaled exponentially, really in the beauty category more than a lot of the other categories I've seen.
No, exactly. And I would say when you work, the allergy brands I work were had such high brand awareness, and the competition was tough. But I feel in beauty, especially in the last year, everything has been so much democratized with Amazon. The barriers of entry, right, are so low that it's really hard to really, break through the clutter with your brands. So you really need to get creative on how you're really the storytelling, your assets and the content that you push. It's the most important thing, and that's your key differentiator versus, any other emerging brand that is coming from Korea, right?
Absolutely. In previous conversations, you mentioned that your superpower is finding the real problem. Emphasis on real for those listening in e-commerce, not just the obvious one. I love this question because I see this all the time on the agency side. All the brands that we're talking to, they will, hop on a call with me and they'll be like, this is the biggest problem I need to solve. And then I'll take a look at their brand. I'm like, no, it's not. Not to mention, every time you log on to LinkedIn, there's a new hack for TikTok Shop. There's a new hack for DSP or AI. What are some of the most common false problems that you think brands are dealing with? Or, how do you help them identify what their actual problem is?
Yeah, I would say that I feel that brands sometimes jump into the next shiny toy before really checking into the basics, right? So I deal with brands where they are convinced that they have a traffic problem, right? And they drive a lot of dollars, against the PDP without actually realizing that they have a conversion problem. Or the other way around, they have an amazing product that is driving 65 conversion, rate, but then they are not investing behind it because it's doing well. So why should I invest more, right? So I do think that it's always going back to the basics, the things that maybe are not the sexiest, right? It's really making sure that is what I was saying, your brand is really telling the story in the content that you're building, and in every advertising and every touch point that people have with your product. And that's something that there are not a lot of brands that are doing a great job on it. I will tell you, even in the beauty industry, and my categories are very niche, it's sometimes so hard to find, okay, who is the gold standard outside of the typical, right? You hear in every talk, Dove, Tide, Procter and Gamble, you hear how Unilever and P&G are doing amazing from a content perspective. But then you want to see what are other, smaller players like my brands that are doing a great job. But I do think it's because sometimes we forget about how fundamental it is that you have only, how much, 10, 15 seconds, they say, to get a hook on someone. And then you were lucky enough sometimes that they land into your PDP over, the next one but you lose that opportunity, but not really showcasing why they should buy you, right? Why you are different versus the rest. And you assume the consumer knows things that they don't. And that's for me what I would say. I don't create the content. I work directly with my marketing teams. My team works with them, and we're always trying to challenge, why would you do this? Why are you burying the key point of why your product is different versus the rest, right? And I do feel that we are in a better space, at least in my brands. But when I looked into other brands, I would say it's the biggest problem, right? And there are even huge brands that you would think, oh my God, with the brand awareness this brand has, they must be crushing it on Amazon. And they are not, because they don't pay attention to the content, or they feel because they have the awareness, they can rest on their laurels. I was recently shopping, I was renovating my bathroom, right? And I'm not going to mention the brand, but this brand came as highly recommended to me because it was like, if you want to put this brand, then whenever you want to resell your house, like having this brand on your bathrooms make everything worth more. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna, as I'm an Amazonian, right? I will directly to Amazon to shop for it. And the PDP was horrible, I'll tell you. Like, and I'm not a person, and I try to find it even like what the things I wanted on Home Depot, and I couldn't see it in store. So I had to rely online and trust that the PDP, when it arrived, it will come as I was expecting it. So of course I double checked that I could return it, right? And I would say Home Depot is great on that one because they have a great return policy. I shouldn't be talking about, I really like how the Home Depot experience I felt for these big pieces that sometimes you spend $5,000 on like a bathroom furniture, and you want to make sure that I cannot see in person. Well, I want to know that they will come and pick it up and I can return it. And they did such a bad job, I will tell you. Like, because if you would look that furniture, how you look in my bathroom and how they put it on their PDP, you would never think that it would look good on anything. So, and I feel like when I was looking at it, I was like, I wish I could be a consultant for this brand and I could make them win so much money just by fixing the content, right? Like,
basics.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's frustrating because they're spending quite a bit of money on that original touch point, the exposure, whether it was, meta ads or the publications and the PR side. It's for every 50 bonus points they win for their amazing traffic and awareness, they're losing so much because that trust and authority that's missing from something as simple as your listing.
Oh, exactly. So for me, it's like when you think about like the marketing teams, and that was a struggle at Bayer and at even Unilever. Sometimes the content was not a priority for them.
Yeah.
It was for us when you are on the sales side, because you know that you can't sell things that don't convert, right? No matter you cannot there is no promo, right? At a point in time, you cannot push because that's brand equity, right? Like whatever you're putting on the product detail page, it's your brand messaging, your core, your storytelling. So in the end, it's hard to fix that.
Yeah. And I think a point that you made earlier was that a lot of this access has been democratized. And I think AI is empowering a lot of that, of being able to do some of the keyword research needed, doing some of the creative work that's needed, the PDP optimization needed. I think some of the big brands are so bureaucratic in that regard. They're not willing to lean into AI too heavy in some areas, and maybe they should be, but they're moving too slow. So you have these really small brands, to your point, that are really perfecting the science of building a great listing, and they're over investing in it. And that's why a lot of them, I think, are capturing share relatively quick, as they're focusing on those basics. The traffic problem, frequently comes down to money, which is why the bigger brands have always had a competitive advantage. But creative is no longer the competitive advantage it used to be for large brands.
No, and I will tell you, I'm looking at right now at some of the private labels that are coming directly from China.
Yeah.
And they are killing it. And I'm telling you, with not a lot of media investment, they were able to increase the conversion, and they're driving sales just because they optimize for AI, all of the copy, like titles, product description, bullets. I could see too that they use AI for their images. Unfortunately, what I would say is, because some of our products are skincare that what you want to see, so they're self-tanner products, and you want to be honest, so you really want to show how great your product would look like in reality. We are not using AI models for that. Like, we really are leveraging true photo shoots to show how beautiful you could look, right? And have a wide variety, trying to use user-generated content for that. But I would say for other things like tools that I sell too, right? Cosmetic tools, like where you don't need a face. I do think these brands are having a competitive advantage because they're digitally native. They are directly sourced from China, where I feel like in China, the advancements in AI are like tremendous. Like I feel like we were talking earlier about how they're even building dynamic PDPs, and that's the next stage of moving from a static to a dynamic PDP that adapts based on what you're searching for, right? And your contextual search, which is crazy. But yeah, I do think that's when you think about, the recipe from all of these new emerging Korean brands to in the beauty space, I think it's a combination of them having a really cool content. They've been doing social commerce much longer than we did, and they know the power of social commerce and the, the social currency that it gives and the direct halo to, Amazon and the Alibabas or whatever, Asian bigger monsters that exist there. So I feel like it's gonna be much, much harder just to truly differentiate, because it's I've seen these brands have really great content. They did really good with AI. They are really investing, and it's not that expensive anymore, right? It's what you said earlier. You don't need to invest millions to get the right content, but there is a time too. Like, and I would say that sometimes I would say my limitation today, it's not the money, it's sometimes the bandwidth and the human resource, because we're still like, I feel like we are on the AI tools advanced, but you still need a human to kind of review and audit what is being published, so that you are not saying something that you're not supposed to say, because some of our products, are regulated. So you cannot, you don't want to lie to people. And sometimes, you need to audit and make sure that you are claiming what actually is truthful. And sometimes of these, I would say, overseas brands, what I do see is that they don't have that extra layer. And I'm sure I read what they're putting there. It's like, there is no way this is true, right? But
and they don't have
they can get away with it.
Yeah, they don't have the legal risk, or they're not in retail stores, which also I think is a level of risk that is quite a bit less. Yeah. Exactly. We've talked about a lot, and we went broad with like conversion rate optimization. If you really had to focus on, you're starting a new job with a new brand, and there's 3 key things that you want to hone in and do exceptionally well. Could be TikTok Shop, it could be UGC. What are the 3 things that you would say a brand should absolutely prioritize?
Yeah, well, we talk about the content, right? So you want to make sure, of course, that your content is optimized. I think the catalog health, it's something, again, it's not sexy. Anything that I'm going to say here, it's not sexy, but I think it's like really making sure that you have the right catalog, because if your infrastructure is broken, then again, there is no media dollars that is going to fix that if you don't have the right assortment, right? If you are losing the buy box, right? If you're having fulfillment gaps, if you're not, really making sure that you have inventory towards your bestsellers, that you're pushing media, right? How many times, Destaney, if you talk to Emery and Nick that manage my account, we were pushing something to just find out that we went out of stock. And with beauty, sometimes it happens more than usual when you go viral, for example. It's hard, but I would say there are a lot of things that you can put into consideration to make sure that you have a buffer to account for those viral moments. I think the third one too, it's about really looking at the economics of your SKUs, right? Just really identifying what are those power core SKUs where you have the highest profitability at Amazon, are profitable for you, that you can really push with your media, that are, have high conversion, that, it's that win-win kind of like where you check the box on everything and you really want to power against those. And that's, I believe, that when I took over Future Beauty Brands, when we focus on those 3 things, that's what allow us to get, when I joined, we were declining in sales. And then by the end of last year, we were growing double digits because of it, because we were able to really fix the inventory problems that we're having, course correct the content, and then really push our investments behind those really power SKUs that contribute to 60 to 70% of our total sales. So it's not that it's simple, but it's hard to do, I would say, because it takes patience and time. Because when we did this, it took us 6 months to see results. And sometimes leadership gets nervous when they don't see results immediately.
Absolutely. Not to mention, e-commerce is still relatively young. I mean, very young, I would say, especially compared to traditional retail. It's a whole different way of driving traffic, attribution. The measurement behind it is incredibly different. How do you manage up in that regard? How do you manage expectations on, hey, this isn't sexy. It's not all of the shiny things you're seeing online, but I guarantee you it's going to help with XYZ. Do you have any recommendations on how you've really educated leadership and set expectations around those key areas?
I think it's being clear in advance, showing a plan. Like when you have a plan and then you are showing how you are tracking against the expectations, that helps a lot. Like I will tell you, when we started with the whole, media reprioritization and everything with the team, right? It was about like, it was clear from the beginning, we're going to do this. We're not going to see the results immediately, but we're going to check back 3 months from now. It's like, we can decline more. When you are declining at minus 23% week over week, right? How much? You can always go further, right? But what I would say is there is not a lot much more to lose at that point.
Yep.
But I think if we set up a plan with clear expectations and benchmarks along the way, then you show the trend. I feel like that's the best way you can do it, right? Always being clear on expectations, just to go back to it. And I think that worked for us. Like, I do think that a lot of hesitation sometimes comes when you are not clear on the plan, right? Or you fail to communicate what you're trying to achieve, what is the strategy behind, and what are even the goals you're trying to get. And that's when leadership becomes nervous, because suddenly you go silent, you don't talk about it, and they're like, okay, what's going on? Like, the sales continue declining, but you are not doing anything. And in fact, you are doing. It's just that you didn't communicate it clearly.
Absolutely. Something that we see frequently as well is just there's an education gap in our space. We're all learning on the fly and taking in as much content as possible from events, from webinars, from podcasts. One small change is a ripple across the community. And a true leader really cannot keep up with all of it. And I think that's something that I've seen as we've really built our team, is relying on the team to become experts in key areas and funnel that information up to me. And same thing with the brands we work for. Sometimes it's not enough to just say, this is the goal and what we're going to do. It's like, this is why we have to do something this way. It's pulling up Amazon or Walmart, or asking them how their daughter shops online, and realizing your daughter sees a TikTok and then they go to the D2C site and then they decide that they want it quicker than 5 days. So then they go to Amazon. I've had that incrementality conversation over and over again. But I think, have to give a lot of grace in that what we do is still young and incredibly niche. And just because we've been doing it for 10 years and it comes easy to us, we know what a buy box is. Others don't. And that takes time. If you don't have the patience for it, which sometimes you don't, because our industry, again, requires a lot out of people. But having the patience to really take the time to explain everything is another key area, I would say, on our end.
Yeah. And I would say, like, more when you have changes in leadership, I do think that you constantly need to remind you, okay, I'm always remind, okay, what is the best way to communicate this? And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still even working and talking to other peers to understand, okay, what have you done that really worked, that really landed it fast, so that people don't get nervous, right? And because in the end, what you want is them to trust that we are doing the right thing to move the needle, right? And once that trust is established, I do think that the flow is easier, right? Like, they may not understand fully, but at least they can grasp the surface. And then they don't need to get into the details, because they know you are taking care of the details, right? But again, you need to bring them along the way. And I think that some is tough because they don't have enough time for you to explain, because sometimes you need a full hour and they don't even have a full hour to spend with you. So it's been challenging. It's been one of the biggest challenges I felt, that we're constantly educating, leadership. And sometimes you need to be super smart and build this snackable content that you only have 3 minutes to present. And you're like, okay, what am I presenting that will land and give them the confidence that we're doing the right thing here?
Absolutely. It's so much of it is we use the phrase emotional bank account a lot at BTR Media. I think it was, 7 habits of highly successful people. One of those books I read talked about the emotional bank account. It was every time you have a relationship with someone, you have deposits and you have withdrawals. And the more deposits you make early on, the, easier it is to make a withdrawal later. And I think that's incredibly important in our industry. One last question. So we've talked a lot about automation, talked a lot about AI. Where are the areas that you think human intervention is absolutely going to be fundamental? Where do you think that people are maybe missing the mark on AI, and humans really need to make sure they're connecting, especially in a category like beauty, where it is based on connection?
I do think that when you are talking about beauty products, right, and it's even like products that people will wear, and I would say beauty, health, like sometimes there is a fine line on AI and automatizing everything without a human review. I feel like could be dangerous because suddenly you may be misleading with what your products actually, and then you could get, I don't know, suddenly you get a problem where you're saying something that you shouldn't, your item gets suppressed, you get high returns, so it costs money in the end. So I do think AI, it's good, but there's still a human that needs to be involved and review. And I feel like maybe we become more editors than
Yeah.
anything, right? When you think about it, like, so one of my team members, right? So I have a content team, and she used to be our SEO copywriter, but now suddenly she's not writing the content anymore. She's an editor now because she's editing everything that we get from our AI tools and making sure that the tone of voice is correct, that we are not saying anything that we shouldn't be saying, right? To avoid any legal problems. And I don't think today you could hand that over to an AI tool. I feel like there always gonna have to be some sort of like human intervention. Even I do think when we're talking about, paid media and the automatization, right? There are some things that we do that are not based on numbers, right? That
Yeah.
it's more about like a strategic intent that we know we're gonna lose money, but we still wanna go after them, right? And I think that's where the human intervention will always have that touch. It's like, when the calculator was invented or the computer and they felt like they was going to replace humans.
Yeah.
I don't think, at least in the near future, that's going to happen. You still need some sort of human guidance, right, to regulate and edit. I do see it as it's kind of like, I was watching this movie from Atlas. I don't know if you're for Jennifer Lopez. That is in the future, and they insert AI chips into their brains to make them, smarter. And I see that in a sense where it's a bit of a combination of you as a human and
Yeah.
your knowledge plus how the AI actually
Yeah.
uh, exponentially, drives that in a more impactful way. Um, but I do think there's always like someone needs to be auditing because it could get really crazy. I felt if we turned everything into AI, suddenly I don't know what to believe anymore today, right? So imagine.
Yeah,
I feel it's scary, but I'm
it's
still have hope that you need human intervention to make sure that things go the right way.
I couldn't agree more. I've been asked multiple times in the last few months, like, what are your thoughts on the future of the industry? And I think I start with, I'm nervous. I'm anxious. There's a lot that could go wrong,
Yeah,
but I would rather be on the side that is learning as much as possible and investing in it than the side that is
neglecting
not
it. Yeah,
neglecting it. Absolutely. Well, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time to join the
of course.
podcast. I have loved our conversation and obviously love working with your brands as well. Any other quick thoughts or anything you want to add on?
I would say that we were talking earlier before joining the podcast that sometimes there's so much data, right? Lately, and AI is mentioned so often that sometimes you get data paralysis, which was something that I faced last year. And I was lucky enough that we have we're owned by private equity, and we have one of our what operators, right? That it's leading a bit of like the AI side on e-commerce. And I talked to him. I just need you to build a prefix menu for me because I can't deal with this Cheesecake Factory type of menu
Yes.
where I don't know what to order, right?
Yeah.
I'm just like, so just tell me and then I'll just go and do something versus, doing nothing because I cannot make a decision, right?
Yeah.
So my recommendation will be to versus that is just grab one. Maybe it was the agency that you really like or like a company that you felt. I feel like nobody knows right now what they're doing in reality because everything is evolving so fast that
Yeah.
just doing something and jumping in and learning, it's better than just doing nothing and see all of these, competitors just completely stealing your share
Yeah.
because they're leaning, right? So I would say it's the era of leaning in, learning, make mistakes, right?
Yes.
And learn from them.
I think that is the perfect note to end on. Make mistakes, test and learn as fast as
Yeah.
possible. Don't spread yourself too thin and don't get overwhelmed because to your point, nobody knows what they're doing. The moment you perfect, your OpenAI prompting, Claude goes ahead. The moment you perfect Claude, we're all back at ChatGPT. So
yes, exactly.
Something is better than nothing.
Yeah, 100%. But thank you for having me, Destaney. I really enjoyed this.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anna.